Hello students, in our previous class we have studied about division of sectors as organized and unorganized sector. Today we will study about another classification of sector which is done on the basis of ownership. On the basis of ownership there are two sectors of Indian economy, public sector and private sector. Public sector is the sector which is owned by the government. The government owns most of the asset and provides all the services. In private sector, ownership of asset and delivery of service is in the hand of private individuals or companies. Example of public sector are Indian Railway, Indian Post Office, Indian Defence. Whereas example of private sector are Tisco, Wipro and Reliance. The main motive of private sector is to earn profit. To get these services, we have to pay money to these individuals and companies. But the purpose of public sector is not just to earn profit. The government raise money through taxes and other ways to meet expenses on services rendered by it. The main motive of the public sector is to just provide services. There are several things needed by the society as a whole, but which the private sector will not provide at reasonable cost. Why? Some of these need spending large sums of money which is beyond the capacity of the private sector. Also, collecting money from thousands of people who use these facilities is not easy. Even if they do provide these services, they would charge a high rate for their use. For example, the construction of roads, bridges, railways, harbors, generating electricity, providing irrigation through dams. Thus, government have to undertake such heavy expanding and ensure that these facilities are available for everyone. There are some areas like electricity, providing irrigation through dam, construction of bridges, railways. These are not undertaken by the private sector because it costs huge amount of capital. Thus, government have to undertake these heavy spending. There are some activities which the government has to support. The private sector may not continue their production or business unless the government encourages it. For example, selling electricity at cost of generation may push up the cost of production of goods in many industries. Many units, especially small-scale units, might have to shut down. Government here steps in producing and supplying electricity at rates which these industries can afford. Government has to bear part of the cost. To run private sector also, they need support from the government. For example, in electricity, governments are providing electricity at the reasonable cost. Because of that reason, the production of goods in many industries also not so high. Similarly, the government of India buy wheat and rice from farmer at fair price. This it stores in its godown and sells at lower price to consumer through ration shops. There are a large number of activities which are the primary responsibility of the government. The government must spend on these. The activities like providing health and education is the primary responsibility of the government. Running proper schools and providing quality education, particularly elementary education, is the duty of government. India's size of illiterate population is one of the largest in the world. In our India, the illiterate population is very high as comparing to other countries. Similarly, we know that nearly half of the Indian children are malnourished and a quarter of them are critically ill. We have read about infant mortality rates. The infant mortality rates of Orissa is 40 and Madhya Pradesh is 51, which is higher than some of the poorest regions in the world. So it's the responsibility of the government to spend money on the children, those who are malnourished. Government also needs to pay attention to aspects of human development such as availability of safe drinking water, housing for the poor, and food and nutrition. These are the other duties of government. It is also the duty of government to take care of the poorest and most ignored region of the country through increased spending in such areas. So these are the duties of government which cannot be undertaken by the private sector. In such area, government must have to spend money.